Wild and Woolly Ozarks, episode number 21, The Bodacious Ozarks.
Gather up the kids and the old folks. Shut down the contraptions and dim the lights. Put away your pocket-sized magic lantern shows. Close your eyes and listen. It's time to strike off on the paths less traveled, down dark trails through the hills and hollers, along the riverbanks and into the brush. Hear tales of things forgotten yet told. Join me as we venture into the wild and woolly Ozarks. I'm your native guide and host, Champ Heron.
Welcome back, gentle people. It's a droughty spring here on Dry Creek. Our gardens are in process, but even they're noticing the heat. The lambs are fattening and we are awaiting calves. The grass is thin, but it's still there. So far, I'm not gonna panic. But despite the lack of moisture, late spring abounds in all her glory. I could smell it this morning when I got out and did chores. It's out of sheer exhilaration with this time of the year that we bring you this episode. It's a wonderful story. So if you can, get a drink now, or fill your pipe, get that, what we call the pocket-sized magic lantern show, turn it off. Get in a place where you can truly lay back and listen. Little housekeeping here before we go any further. We are getting some 5-star reviews. I want to say a big thank you to the several that have came in on Spotify and on Facebook and elsewhere. By the way, for those of you who haven't put away the pocket-sized magic lantern show or on the laptop or desktop and casually listening to this, but you have Facebook open, I won't tell your boss if this is at work. But if you don't mind, slip over to the Wild and Woolly Ozarks page and give us a like and a follow. If you truly enjoy what we do, after this episode, please hit share and send it to the home folks. They'll thank you for it. I encountered a friend the other day who told me they loved the podcast, and I would have never guessed they even listened to podcasts. And so it was kind of a shock, but I'm grateful for their kind words. You know who you are out there if you're listening. Keep those suggested topics coming, though. I've got a couple of really good ones to look into. I'm thinking about looking at the Wright County Slickers. If you know about that, get in touch with me. Or maybe you just have a mystery to plumb, or maybe a wild and woolly piece of Ozarks history you'd like to share. We welcome you to drop us a line at wildinwoollyozarks@gmail.com. That's wild, the letter N, WOOLLY, ozarks@gmail.com. And now, story time with Uncle Champ. But first, we bring you this rant. I like the freedom of podcasting. It gives me a rapid, simple way to record and disperse information. Make a recording of things before they slip away, so to speak. Get that story down before it's gone forever. Podcasting is the new regional magazine, and I'm proud to be a part of it. It's exciting, it's a great opportunity, and it's something new. But with that comes a responsibility to the people who live here. Our podcast focuses on the Ozarks, about things that probably don't affect anyone's daily life, or, events long such forgotten. But they're of interest to the home folks. And so our responsibility is not only just to record this stuff and look back in time and figure out where we want to go with our own individual shows. But we also have an opportunity for those of us who look back to try to look to the forward and be something of a warning sign. We have a role in dialogue and a responsibility in recording that. I'm still up for murderers and ghosts and history and vigilantes and the like. But we also have a platform to create awareness, advocate for the little towns and the truly wild places that are left, and always try our level damnedest to protect what we hold dear for generations unborn. Because there are no corporate masters, hell, we don't even have a checking account for the podcast. Should the mood strike, I can tilt at windmills. My hope is, before our home is gone, before it's carved up into tiny lots or micro-calf feeding operations, or the streets are plagued with foreigners from the West Coast or somewhere up north, that we take time to appreciate what we have and look to the future. Think of it, folks. Well, that's my rant. I like this ranting bit. It's fun. It's been on my mind to create a regular feature of the Wild and Woolly Ozarks that would highlight an uncommon book that I happen to love. We all know Vance Randolph's writings, or Thane Williams, or Harold Bell Wright, among others. These wonderful stories, sometimes they're just short stories, novels, or in Randolph's case, collections, are fun reads and an invaluable asset to understanding the Ozarks. Sometimes, though, you find a book and it seems you're the only one enthused about it, and you can't believe it. As you read snippets and laugh aloud, your wife smiles understandingly. The children have a bored and glazed over look, but laugh because they love you. Ever been there? Don't worry, it happens to all of us. But we'll just roll with what we love. One such book, now a favorite, came into my possession 20 or more years ago. After reading the first chapter, I knew that something had to be done with it. I read chapter 1 and for almost a year failed to read the rest of the book, which is great, because I couldn't get over what to try and do with chapter 1. I thought it could be a one-act play, or an extemporaneous storytelling that we deliver around firelight. I have quoted it, as others have many, many times, and read excerpts back in the storytelling days. Maybe it's been mentioned here or on another podcast, but in my estimation, the book has never fully been given its due. And my guess is you've never heard of it. Tonight's reading is from the Bodacious Ozarks, True Tales of the Back Hills by Charles Morrow Wilson, available from our friends and the sponsor of this episode, Arcadia Publishing. We'll have a little more on that in a bit. Charles Morrow Wilson is a pretty darn good author, in my opinion. Now, give you a little background here, according to the Encyclopedia of Arkansas, he was born in 1905 in Fayetteville, Arkansas, Washington County. He went to U of A, and in 1926, he began writing under the mentorship of Charles J. Finger. Wilson was included in the group of artists, writers, and scientists who gathered at Finger's home near Fayetteville and ended up getting his book, All's Well. Associated with the production of Finger's magazine of essays and reviews, All's Well. In 1927, Wilson, Wilson moved to New York City. He did a lot of just contract writing, and he went overseas and did writing on things like Liberia and on like rubber production in South America and coffee and sugar, a lot of agricultural writing. And then he wrote his first book, Acres of Sky, on Ozark folk traditions. And then later on, he wrote Rabble Rouser and today's book, The Bodacious Ozarks. Go to Encyclopedia of Arkansas. It's a terrific resource, and you can read up on him. He was married to an illustrator and then divorced and remarried, so who knows, there's probably a story there. Maybe some die-hard Charles Morrow Wilson fan, if I haven't offended him yet, will come forth. For those who study Ozark culture and don't appreciate and occasionally revel in the romance of it, you're emotionally dead. Like Wilson, I also romanticize the old ways. His explorations of eccentric relatives, agriculture, moonshining, cookery, and just what it means to be a free man tramping through the hells found a spark in me. I hope it's the same with you. There is a romance to these things, the simplicity of those he encountered, the ruggedness and the humor. In reading about our region, I always try to look for threads that tie me to the past, but cast me into the future. Wilson's book is kind of like that. He writes in 1959, looking back 40 to 50 years, just as the Ozarks were about to change. He mourns the change, but he revels in the remains. You end up with a portrait of life that comes across as vivid, like a painting. No matter how you look at it, it's still vivid. That's how Wilson gives us chapter number 1, which I'm going to read for you. Chapter 1, Glimpsing the Ozark Backhills. Grandpa Wilson settled in the Arkansas Ozarks in 1836. It was something of an accident. The same held for his brother Green, the artistic member of the family. Alfred, my grandpa, was 16 and Green was 17 when they headed west and south out of the far coves back of Fayetteville, Tennessee. Alf took off in broad daylight, goading a pair of wild young oxen yoked to a two-wheel cart. Uncle Green headed west about a week later aboard a sound fleet Morgan horse, a situation which necessitated his leaving after dark. Both passed through the Chickasaw Bluffs, now Memphis, and ferried the Mississippi aboard Gaither's tow barges, perhaps on the same day, but the brothers did not meet. Grandpa Wilson took the wrong turn at Cypress Stages a couple of days beyond the ferry site. He didn't find out he was on the wrong road until he was in the far and largely roadless hills about halfway to Fort Smith, Arkansas. Winter was setting by then. On a snowy afternoon, Alf Wilson's cart bounded down the side of a boulder outcrop and broke a wheel. When he saw the damage was irreparable, the youngest of the flock of 9 Wilsons burned the broken wheel and presently the rest of the cart in order to keep from freezing to death during the bitter night. Next morning he led his oxen into the saloon-littered stagecoach terminal, which he presently joined in naming Fayetteville, Arkansas. There Grandpa swapped one of his steers for 2 weeks' lodging at one of the stage taverns and bartered the other steer for a set of law books. He didn't exactly cherish the law books, but the owner had died and bequeathed the law books as a first, and as things turned out, the final payment on his tavern bill. Lacking feed for his final ox, Alf Wilson begrudgingly swapped the hungry steer for the law library. Lacking other occupation, he settled on to reading the books, then to lawyering, then to farming, then to politics, and eventually to the gratis and unrequested title of Old Legal. Meanwhile, Alf's artistic brother was winning the durable designation of Old Illegal. My great-uncle Green managed to take the road right out of Cypress Stages, but apparently he took the wrong way to Little Rock. I never identified all that happened. I do know that great-uncle left Little Rock, headed for the far-back Ozarks, with a sheriff's pistol slug in his right leg and the Pulaski County Sheriff in better than lukewarm pursuit. The Morgan horse, as a breed, was one of the fastest and toughest ever begotten of earth, air, water, male and female horses, and Green Wilson's horse was true to the breed. In any case, he outran the sheriff's horse, and Uncle Green reached the limestone cave country of what we now know are the Carroll County, Arkansas Ozarks, with his fiddle and horse intact, but his right leg amputated, in deference to the gangrene, which had directly settled around the sheriff's bullet. By 1854, when President Pierce appointed my grandpa federal prosecutor for the Western District of Arkansas, Uncle Green had settled down to counterfeiting. Solid money rather than sloppy greenbacks or bank script appealed to his subtle artistic heritage. In the beginning, Uncle Green struck off a few kegfuls of lead dollars. They were strikingly original and quite pretty, but apparently nobody except possibly a blind bartender ever seriously considered taking them in lieu of money. Some said the lead dollars came out bulgy in the middle and ragged at the edges because the bronze molds Uncle Green used couldn't be clamped tight enough. But presently, Green began counterfeiting and gold dipping $10 and $20 gold pieces, eagles and double eagles. Even the experts found them lifelike and fairly negotiable. When the U.S. Treasury Department finally got out warnings, my grandfather, as the local federal prosecutor, was understandably embarrassed. By messenger, he sent word to Green that he would hate mightily to be obliged to prosecute his own brother. I have a copy of Uncle Green's reply. "Dear brother Alfie, don't worry too bad. They'll have to catch me first. Your loving brother Green." During May of 1861, when my grandpa set out for Little Rock to be sworn in as the customary colonel in the Confederate Army, Brother Green began supplying counterfeit U.S. gold for the aid, comfort, and advancement of the Confederacy. Apparently, the spurious coinage gave the boys in gray considerable aid and a lot of comfort. It showed up in body houses as far north as St. Louis, and in some part may have helped supply other military requirements. In any case, Uncle Green counterfeited like crazy throughout the Civil War. After the struggle between the states was momentarily concluded, my grandfather, understandably, was no longer a U.S. attorney, and his gratis title of Old Legal was of no particular significance. But his brother Green was going strong with his counterfeiting, his fiddling, singing, and folkish antics. Travelers told of hearing wondrous fiddle music pouring out of the cave entrances or far back hill meeting houses, even before they could hear the stomping or dancing of feet inside. Federal men reported that Uncle Green's artistically funny money kept cropping up all the way from St. Louis to the Portlands, i.e. Maine and Oregon. Beginning in the early 1890s, the family began getting dribbles of dependable information about its estrayed artist member. These came directly from Uncle Fred Morrow, my mother's younger brother, who had worked his way through a medical school in Memphis, and diploma in hand had set out for the back hills to pick himself a location. He rode a livery stable horse into the wilds of Carroll County, Arkansas, as far as the crossroads village called Green Forest, where the rented horse abruptly sank down dead. Fred Morrow, M.D., diagnosed this as a heart attack, buried the horse, and set up practice in and around Green Forest in truly back hill Ozarks. His first case was a gunshot wound. His second and third were knife wounds. Then came an influx of babies, followed by a virtual epidemic of gunshot wounds. Among the latter were two members of the U.S. Marshals Party who had ridden out into the Lime Cave Hills to haul in Old Illegal, alias Green Wilson. 4 lawmen rode out, only 2 rode back. The other 2 returned to the village face down in a rented farm wagon. Both the wounded had been shot in the buttocks that looked very much like the antics of old illegal. My doctor uncle tweezered out the bullets. Both were homemade mini balls, obviously fired from a muzzleloader with a low powder charge. When the marshal asked what the young doctor made of it, my medical doctor uncle answered, "I've seen that mold of mini balls before. 'Pears to be where Green Wilson customarily shoots the federal men." The marshal interrupted to explain that insofar as he had personally winged old illegal, the aforenamed criminal would unquestionably be calling for medical attention in the very near future, at which time it was the doctor's bounden duty to turn the desperado in. Uncle Fred didn't see it that way. He figured that whoever truly needed his services would get them, and the U.S. Marshals could go mix their own juleps. The marshal and his men were hardly out of sight when a puny little boy garbed in a yellow long shirt without breeches came riding in bareback and lickety-split to summon the doctor and trail him back to old Green Wilson's hideout. Uncle Fred advised the pantsless Mercury to simmer down, and prior to setting out treated the youth to a 15-cent lunch at the local snackery. Then he saddled his horse, took up his surgery kit, and with the boy leading the way, rode up into the cave country. Young Doc Morrow knew whom he'd be treating. He didn't know that he would be obliged to tether his horse, light a pine-knot torch, which the way shower had readied, and slosh and stumble more than a half-mile into a cave. Uncle Green was a caveman, all right, and a badly shot caveman at that. My medical uncle succeeded in kindling a fire with discarded bedding straw, heating a pan of water, and lighting a knee-high kerosene lantern with a cracked chimney. He washed the chest wound, dug out the bullet, and heated his branding irons, cauterized the surface areas, then dressed and bandaged the old man's chest and shoulder. During the long ordeal, my great-uncle didn't cry out once. Instead, he asked questions, all quite rational. How long before he could play his fiddle again? What did the doctor recommend? What was the prescription, and how much was the charge? My doctor uncle favored with forthright answers, having first made the slender old man as comfortable as possible on the floor bunk. He pronounced there was a fair chance the old man's shoulder and arm would presently recover sufficiently for fiddle playing. Nobody could be sure, but the least the doc could do was to come back and recheck the wound the following day, and a couple of times after that. The doc would also send back the little boy with a supply of food and some cooking utensils, having first endeavored to tell the brat how and what to cook. Uncle Fred then checked the obviously homemade peg leg, which just as obviously it never came anywhere near fitting. "After your shoulder heals, I'll get you measured for a decent wooden leg. You'll have to pay for this. As for me, I don't require any funny money. I got funny patients." Uncle Green seemed hurt by the reference to funny money. He vowed he had quit counterfeiting nearly 10 years before. He was a reformed and double-baptized and duly saved foot-washing Baptist and a bill-paying, law-abiding American citizen. Young Doc Morrow said that all that was very gratifying, and he further recommended that as soon as possible the old man get the hell out of the dark, stinking cave and bunk up in a log cabin the same as any other law-abiding, properly saved Ozarker. Uncle Green promised to do just that. The reformed one recovered from his wound when Uncle Fred drove down into Surrey with an artificial limb salesman to help make the measures. Uncle Green had moved into an abandoned logger shack a couple of miles out of Fingal's Rim. The location was considerably less accessible than the cave, but at least somewhere near averagely livable. Uncle Green welcomed his professional callers with an improvised fiddle concert of Irish jigs, and they hauled the old man down the gulchy mountainside. Uncle Green made quite a ceremony of tossing what he said were the last of his coin molds into a deep pool of the Little Buffalo River. For many years, the kin across in Washington and Benton counties followed the doings of Uncle Green by way of Doc Morrow's occasional reports and the less than reliable Hillside Grapevine. The general understanding was that among his numerous goings and comings, Old Illegal had turned out to be quite a salvationer. Armed with his fiddle and hymn book, he was getting to be a soul-saving circuit rider with music, but without compensation. There were the inevitable I Hear Tell Green Wilson stories. The one I liked best dealt with a brush arbor revival meeting near Savoy, Arkansas, where the itinerant preacher was leading a community for rain. It happened on a blistery September night, and as was still and is too frequently the case, the Ozarks had been punished by a demon of a drought so ruthlessly prolonged that the poor people were already going hungry and facing the prospects of a starvation winter. The preacher was praying for a divine recurrence of the parable of feeding of the hungering multitude. After a time he began calling on the faithful to testify individually. When the fiddler's turn came, Uncle Green opened. "O Lord, go ahead and take care for each according to his needs. Grant every household a barrel of cured pork, a barrel of molasses, a barrel of flour, a barrel of salt, a barrel of pepper." Oh, hell, that's too damn much pepper. The life of salvation went hard with Uncle Green. Crippled, past 70, and scarecrow poor, he fished, hunted, and hobbled and scratched out a living as a back-hill searcher man. He trailed down wild honey, dug and sold ginseng root, picked, hulled, and peddled chinkapins, chestnuts, and black walnuts, and otherwise scrambled for the makings of a nickel and a dime here. For better or worse, and at best it was pretty bad, Old Illegal remained invincibly law-abiding. And even as he grew feebler and even more ragged, he refused to have any business with anything even faintly resembling handouts. Every time my grandfather sent or overtured to send money or goods, his brother Green spurned the would-be gifts. He also refused to take money for his music. "I already got charity," he explained, "and I sure as hell don't take handouts." Well, let's take a little break here. Have a word from our sponsor. I want to thank today's sponsor, Arcadia Publishing, publisher of the Bodacious Ozarks and many other fine books about the region. It is through their neighborliness that today's reading appears. Whether you're looking for Civil War history, gunfights, ghosts, legends, or lore, maybe regional histories of local communities, perhaps your own, or one that you grew up in. I personally want to get a hold of the book about the building of the Bagnell Dam. I want to curl up with that and see what it's about. I think it sounds really interesting. The good people at Arcadian Publishing have many other volumes to choose from. So go online and take a gander at arcadianpublishing.com. They support a lot of local authors right here in the Ozarks. This is a great way for you to do so as well. So whether you're looking for yourself or buying a gift they'll cherish, try Arcadian Publishing. arcadianpublishing.com. Promo code WWOzarks. Hey folks, can I put a bug in your ear? Not a real one, don't worry. Please submit questions about Silver Dollar City for Mark Cumming. Yes folks, he's coming back. We're going to have another great episode about all the details of Silver Dollar City. We will be answering your questions, as long as you're not hateful or anything, in the podcast. It's going to be a whopper of an episode, and we want you to be a part of it. So please drop us a line at wildinwillieozarks@gmail.com or send us a message on Facebook. That'll do too. And now let's go see what happens to Green Wilson, the artist. Finally, during the ruthlessly hot summer of 1916, Uncle Green scrawled and mailed a note to my grandfather. "Brother Alf, I've got to die. It would oblige me mightily if you'd come and see me. Your brother Green. My grandpa had died 7 years before, so the letter was passed on to my father, who accepted the invitation. To my profound gratification, he took me along. We hitched one of the Broncos to the one-horse spring wagon and set out to locate Uncle Green. My father had taken for granted that the old-timer was on or near his deathbed. As we soon discovered, that was nowhere near the truth. On the second day out, we stopped to buy provisions in a loggers' village called Loafer's Glory. The storekeeper reported that Uncle Green had driven up to his store less than a week before, behind a lawfully borrowed mule team, with his fiddle and a red kerchief filled with fine ginseng root to barter with, in the front seat, and a hen crate full of cats in the wagon bed. Why the cats? The storekeeper indulged in a sad, understanding smile. Old feller appears to be touched in the head. When I asked him why the cats, he says he's collecting cats to haul to Eureka. So when I asked what in turn all he aimed to do with a cage full of cats in Eureka, the old man says, sell them to the moneyed bastards for $1 apiece. The narrator again indulged in a sad and understanding smile. He told us that Uncle Green had spent about half the afternoon playing his fiddle for the entertainment of the usual gathering of store loafers. Also, that the old man had practically started a riot by stating an outrageous question and following it with an even more outrageous answer. Question. 2 adder snakes are exactly 30 inches long. One day 2 snakes get into a fight and each one commences swallowing the other at the rate of an inch a minute. At the end of 30 minutes, what would be left? Answer, there wouldn't be nothing left. Next day at Avoca, we came upon a still warmer trail. Our Uncle Green had been through only the day before. He was still collecting cats, all kinds, toms, tabbies, strays, house, barn, porch, and wild, but recruiting on a very high ethical level. Yes, sir, it was for sure our Uncle Green was no common cat thief. He was getting hold of his cats square and honest. He would hobble to a cabin door, knock, and ask in his courtly manner if the folks happened to have any cats they chose to get rid of. As a rule, they did. Reportedly, one family contributed 16 surplus cats to the roundup. Several had surpluses of a half dozen or more. The storekeeper at Avoca reported that by then our aged uncle had 3 chicken crates, all smack dab full of cats. Every kind of fool cat you ever see, the man of commerce affirmed. Tigers, stripers, yellers, whites, blacks, grays, blues, big cats and little cats, and quite a lot of fat cats. Having refreshed himself from a grayish clay jug, the storekeeper allowed the cats were all getting fatter on account of Uncle Green had been feeding them real good. I give that old man a mighty good dicker on some canned salmon that had got rusty on me. Understand now, it was good salmon fish, only the tins had got a mite rusty. My father promptly identified the dicker had been a good one for the storekeeper. Our uncle had swapped a pound of dry ginseng root worth at least $6 for 4 dozen cans of pink salmon. At least nobody could doubt the confined cats were being properly fed. Your touched old uncle, man, done a funny thing while here, the storekeeper related. In his fiddle case, he carried one of them round hand glasses that makes things look bigger than what they really is. So after we'd finished swapping, the old man asked me if he could take a look at what gold coins I keep in the cash box. So hell, I let him do it. One after the next, he stood there peering at them gold pieces through that magnifying glass, like a child peering at a brand new play pretty. After he finished looking, I seen him count 'em, the coins, and back into the cash drawer fair and square. Then the old man commenced to play his fiddle and sing, and man, I'm telling you, even if your old uncle does look to be 100 years old, that old sawbuck can still sing like a martingale. My father began seeking out the motive for Uncle Green's cat collecting. The storekeeper staggered to the doorway and favored the rising breeze with a tremendous charge of tobacco spit. My notion is that Poor Uncle Green's met up with mighty hard times since he quit counterfeiting. He's getting old, and I figured turning honest might have touched him in the head. Proved too much for his judgment. Anyway, it seems some mischievous damn clodhopper convinced him he could make himself some good money by catching up a wagon load of cats and peddling them in Eureka. They said the new-come rich folks is fresh out of cats and panicky to buy 'em for $1 apiece. I tried to tell your uncle different, but didn't do no good. As we shall presently notice in better detail, Eureka, listed on the contemporaneous maps as Eureka Springs, is an ever-astonishing mountainside town in what were then Backhill Ozarks of Carroll County. At the turn of the century, the discovery of an allegedly medicinal water in the uniquely vertical settlement had drawn a stampede of real or would-be sick people, ranging from the hopelessly stricken to the violently insane to the usual majority of comparatively healthy hypochondriacs and their accompanying kin. Thus, almost overnight, the peculiarly inaccessible Moonshiners' Outpost had been changed into the biggest as well as the flimsiest town in the Arkansas Ozarks, with a transient and immigrant population of at least 25,000. Most of the influx presently seeped and simmered away, but at the time of our pilgrimage to Uncle Green's, Eureka was the wealth and wonder capital of the Ozarks. My father drove hard in hopes of overtaking our attached uncle before his certain-to-be unfortunate arrival in Eureka Springs, but overtaking was made completely impossible by the goat trail of a road, which even now is probably the steepest, curviest, and most scenic main road in all the Ozarks. Once more we arrived only in time to hear what had fresh happened. We learned that Uncle Green and his cargo of cats had pulled into Eureka around the middle of the previous afternoon. Apparently, the loud and boisterous behavior of the cats was aggravated by the rough and bouncy ride and by the fact that Uncle Green had filled one crate exclusively with adult tomcats. In any case, the cat peddling venture was badly snarled long before the vendor got as far as the bandstand, which had been built under a limestone ledge near the middle of town. A horde of boys took in after the cat wagon at the high bend near Streepy's wayside. In practically no time, natural caterwauls and miscellaneous uproar was being exceeded by man-made kinds. Uncle Green was visibly upset when he undertook to call out his wares. "Cats? I got all kinds of cats. Who needs a good cat? Good ratters, good mousers for $1. His rather appealing voice was completely drowned out by the mingled yowling of the cats and the curiosity seekers. The old man flapped the lines and headed for the fringe of grass which comprised the public green, such as it was. There he hitched the mules and hobbled back to the wagon load of squalling cats and took out his ever-shiny fiddle from its beat-up wooden case. He struck up a tune, but this time his music failed to still either savage human or unhappy cat. Indeed, it seemed to make a bad situation worse. Then Uncle Green reached his decision. The closer and more attentive onlookers heard him speak gently and resignedly. "So you smart Alex don't want more honest peddling. So you'd rather act stinky and buy nothing. So I won't disaccommodate you for no buying cats. I'll give 'em to you for free." Paul, I want to redo that with where the voice changes. "So, you smart Alex don't like honest peddling, so you'd rather act stinky and not buy nothing. So I won't disaccommodate you for buying no cats. I'll give 'em to you for free." The old man replaced his fiddle in the battered case, which he laid fondly on the front seat of the wagon. Then he hobbled to the rear of the wagon, let down the backboard, and began opening the poultry crates. Cats began pouring out in feline deluges. They bounded over the fringe of park and leaped and skipped across the dusty road, eagerly resuming their fighting and courting along the boardwalks and the storefronts. A friendly witness told us in explicit detail, "It was just exactly right, the thing he done. The witness's brown cheeks were becoming streaked with tears brought on by laughter. "If the old coot was my great uncle, I'd be the proudest man in Eureka." "What's to become of the cats?" I inquired. "You needn't worry your stupid little head about that, sonny," the informant assured me. "There's plenty openings hereabouts for cats on account of Eureka's a right big town." The skinny onlooker concluded thoughtfully. "Another point is, cats can take a sight better care of cats than people can take care of people." Next day, when we trailed him to his shack, our Uncle Green spoke similar sentiments, but his total outlook seemed benevolent. Before he had finished welcoming us into his home, he explained that he had late changed his mind about dying off. He said in the course of his otherwise lostful trip, he had discovered a wondrous health-restoring drink. The name of the drink was strawberry sody pop. He hadn't hardly no more than swigged down 2 bottlefuls, and by the next morning his bladder aches were all about gone. He had swigged down maybe a dozen bottles since, and was fresh decided to live another 30 years. He actually did live about 3 more. I remember that we made so many misturns that we didn't arrive at Uncle Green's shack until very late in the day. There had been a shower earlier in the afternoon. The grass was almost magically freshened. The oak leaves showed a metallic luster, and a golden green mist blew up from the valley. In that setting, even the one-windowed, weathered gray shack built of pole-sized logs and chinked with brown-red clay seemed beautiful. So did my great-uncle. Old Illegal looked almost exactly as I had imagined he would. He was a tall man with a thin face, high forehead, and silky white hair. His eyes were large, almost grass-green, and superbly expressive of practically every mood of emotion except fear or hatred. There was nothing in his eyes, or his thin, sensitive lips, or his generally poetic face, to indicate that he had ever feared or hated. His voice was amazingly clear and young, as was his laughter. I was disappointed in his fiddle playing, because it seemed to waver and rasp with encroaching age, but his singing delighted me. It had a lyric gaiety which I could feel and enjoy powerfully without being able to fully explain. From the moment he asked us into his one bare-floored room, Uncle Green was in high spirits. He talked of old times until wet darkness settled. Then he permitted me to build a small fire in the black rock fireplace, to set up a big iron pot which contained squirrel and rabbit stew, which, supplemented with Nancy Hall's sweet potatoes roasted in hot ashes, provided our supper. After supper, Uncle Green and my father talked on and on. After a while, the family's artist member began speaking of the Ozarks. "Used to be a real happy land for us outlaws," he recalled. "But for us reformed sons of bitches, no country ain't no great sight better than no other country. But I still say, pious bastard I've turned out to be, that whichever country, it's the back hills that stays interesting and close to everlasting." I agreed with Great Uncle Green at the time. I still agree. The Ozarks are some 50,000 square miles of mid-continent frontier, which is above averagely durable. But its back hills remain the storied bulwarks, its undying stronghold of whimsy and engaging truth. Listening to the allegedly reformed counterfeiter recite glorious stories of his preponderantly inglorious past warmed my already budding desire to seek out and write down the stories, the enduring breath of those remote, rough lands. I think I'll leave it right there. I want to thank you for joining us, giving us a chance to enter into your home or your car or into your ears. If you enjoyed today's reading and want to grab the whole book, you can find it online from the nice folks at Arcadia Publishing. Be sure to tell them who sent you by the promo code WWOzarks. Also, don't be shy with the likes and shares and the 5-star reviews. They mean a lot and they help us keep the place running and the lights lit and other things. As always, share it among the home folks if you haven't. Got a couple of past episodes if you haven't gotten them yet. One on madstones and white deer and folk medicine. Another where our friend Vincent Anderson unpacks Bigfoots of the Ozarks. He has kind of an interesting story or two to share about that, so please join us. I may have an interesting story in there to share too, so please join us. I want to thank my producer, Paul Hambrick, heck of a fellow and a terrific co-creator. Thank you, Paul. Also, by the way, in lack of further legal jargon, the Wild and Woolly Ozarks is a creation of Jared Crawford, the Heron Boys, Paul Hambrick, and myself. Currently, it is owned lock, stock, and barrel by Klein Champion Heron III. Any reproduction is unlawful, of course. I mean, you got to be an idiot to think you're going to steal it, and well, I guess if you don't get caught. But we'll catch you. I know we will. So if you act nice and don't appear crazy, chances I'll give you permission to use it anyway. And I don't necessarily want anything. Maybe a jar of jam or something. Maybe come over, help when we're butchering. That'd be great. That'd be real neighborly. So please follow the rules I set, lest I have to call out my ball knobber friends. Well, until next time, you all be careful. And boys, if you would, please be good to the tourists. Bye now.